Once every few years or so, a film comes out that makes such an immediate impact on viewers and communities that in just the year it comes out, it's easy to consider it as one of the most important films released in recent memory. And I don't think there's any better example of this now than Jane Schoenbrun's I Saw the TV Glow, a film that I had the lucky pleasure of being able to see back in January during the 2024 Sundance Film Festival. Funnily enough, I had no idea the film was going to get the traction it did back then. I knew A24 had picked it up, which despite how bad they can be at distribution and marketing, the name brand for the company is enough to get a film some interest. But I also felt it might be too inaccessible for many to really click with. And, well, let's just say that wasn't the case. Reactions across social media were not just overwhelmingly positive, but overwhelmingly emotional for many in a way that I don't think I've ever seen for a recent release. At least not in a while. Which, once again, is crazy considering just how specific and pointed its message is. A lot of these reasons and reasons I will go more into are why I believe that I Saw the TV Glow is my favorite film of the year, and also one of the most important and essential films of the 21st century so far, already stamping itself as an important piece of this generation's most essential works of art. Jane Schoenbrun, who, by the way, has a very awesome Twitter page that they use very often to either shitpost or communicate with fans and media on a frequent and communicative basis. They only have 2 films as of when I'm making this video, such as We're All Going to the World's Fair, and, as I mentioned before, I Saw the TV Glow. 2 essential pieces of modern queer horror and surrealist cinema that, despite their differences, have a lot of similar things to say about our current generation. And one thing that Jane does better than almost all filmmakers today is that their films never feel like pander pieces by someone out of touch. Jane understands what defines how this current generation of young adults have grown up, through our reliance on escapism with things like the internet and entertainment that, especially for us current young adults, cling on to a whole lot more when growing up than many other generations have. Through the lens of the internet, you see far more people in their 20s still sticking to a lot of the interests that they had as kids, whether it be things like Sonic or Power Rangers or superheroes. It's not like it's uncommon or unnatural for adults to be into these things, but it's become especially more common in recent years than it's ever been due to the accessibility of it all and our generation's need to cling onto the things that keep us connected to our younger selves. The surreal experience of I Saw the TV Glow enhances this feeling so much through its metaphoric narrative, using the pink opaque TV show as a tool to showcase the disconnect our leads have from the real world they live in. As this show, this imaginative experience they've been hooked onto since they were young, makes them feel connected to their true selves far more than the mundane experiences of reality and the interactions they receive from their families ever could. We know that Justice Smith's character, Owen, or Isabel, comes from a rather problematic household. Their father is strict, abusive, and enforces toxic gender norms to project his ruthlessness onto his child. His mother is accepting, caring, and tender, but that one outlet of connection Owen has is lost early on in the narrative, because even she isn't able to get Owen to hatch out of their egg, for even they don't understand the words to say to describe what they're feeling and what's making them feel so detached and dissatisfied. This is expressed in an amazingly well-worded interview from Jane with NPR where they state this: "This is my second feature film. I made my first while searching for language to talk about a feeling that I had always had, why my life and my reality felt like it hadn't quite started yet. I ultimately, very organically, through that process, had my egg crack moment," which is a term that we use in the trans community for the moment when this thing that maybe you've subconsciously always known to be true, which is that you're trans, finally becomes unavoidable, and unavoidable in a way where you can't go right back into the closet and re-repress it. And it was also, I think, an instructive creative process in that I wasn't worrying about good representation. I was worrying about trying to articulate a feeling that, quite literally, I didn't think there was a word for, which is very different. Good representation feels primarily concerned with people who aren't from your background. It feels like, in my case, good representation would be like making a film so that cis people could understand the trans experience, whereas what I was doing as a trans person was just trying to articulate the things that felt oblique about my own experience. If it wasn't made obvious by the very unsubtle messaging and color usage in the film, and the interview that I just shared with you guys right now, I saw the TV glow as heavily linked to the experience of a trans person who finds themselves unable to express the way they feel about themselves, so disconnected from even finding a word to detail how they feel that the only thing they can do is remain quiet and linked to the unreal worlds catering to this feeling, as it is the only way they can escape and feel even the slightest bit of assurance for their dissatisfaction with the way things currently are for themselves, choosing worlds they don't have to fear, until even those become too terrifying to face for them, as that catering can too become something more discomforting. The word trans is never explicitly stated, but that's because of the fact that these characters don't know how to explain how they feel. They don't know if it's the world or themselves that they feel so disconnected from. So they don't know if trans is the right word, or if there even is a word at all to describe how they feel. And a part of them is scared that it is because of the potential rejection and overwhelming emotion that could come of a realization this big, because after all, that is a major change for your life. The world rejects this sort of thing. Even if it is what could make them truly happy, the underlying dread of what could happen keeps them from accepting this, and treating it more like a phase or something unreal that they can keep pushed inside. Because at least if they accept the norm, accept the dull and unhappy reality they live in, at least they don't have to face the world and everyone around themselves going against them. I am not a trans person and I have never once expressed or shared these feelings myself, so I speak primarily as an outsider. But as a member of a queer community myself, I can't help but appreciate and emphasize the importance of a film like this. This expression of self from Jane has made an impact on hundreds of people. Many friends of mine are trans, and were moved heavily by this film. And I find that very beautiful, and it showcases the importance that art has in our daily lives. The film doesn't serve itself as an escape, but as a realization. It completely flips its narrative tools on their head in delivery in a way far more impactful than you could imagine. There are many examples online of people coming out because of this film. A friend of mine, whom I did receive permission to talk about for this video, watched the movie after I recommended it, and they were so moved by it that they not only watched it 3 more times in the same week, but also showed it to their mother right before finally coming out as trans to them, which they were accepted for. And trust me when I say that that was one of the happiest and proudest moments I've had as a friend. It is an integral part of the film that sits at its core, which is why I cannot for the life of me understand people who try to subtract it from the piece's messaging and just paint it as a lesser story about childhood nostalgia and the dangers of it. Yes, that is an aspect of the film, but it is so thoroughly linked to the bigger queer representation that you can't use it as the main selling point without losing so much of the film in the process. Half of the story is entirely empty, and the subtextual meanings of so many scenes and directorial decisions are entirely lost in translation this way, and would make an otherwise introspective and brave piece of art feel empty and lacking in perspective. It would simply just make it confusing. At my initial viewing of the film at Sundance, I noticed this confusion a lot from people who didn't know of the director's background or the trans allegory that isn't really an allegory since it's kinda, the whole point of the film. If the film was all about nostalgia, then what meaning would there be in literally seeing our main character in a dress, which by the way, showcases the happiest and most comfortable expressions we see from Justice Smith's performance in the whole film? Or what about the young Owen walking down and transitioning to Isabel's actor freely and happily walking around? These moments are nothing more than a confusing flip note if you try to ignore the blatant queerness of it, which is why I find it honestly disrespectful to ignore it and try to veer the film away from that. The meaning is not simply up for interpretation if your interpretation is going to ignore the feelings it expresses. There are definitely ways to connect with it even if you're not trans, but that doesn't mean you should ignore and write it off entirely. What would "there is still time" even mean in that case? What weight would it hold? What would the cautionary tale be cautionary of if you removed this core from the film? It would just be meaningless. It would just be empty. Just as the world of I Saw the TV Glow strips the identity away from its leads, you would be stripping the identity of the film away from itself and twist it into something that it isn't. I apologize for the very long rant, but I do feel it is important to acknowledge the artistic identity in films even if you are going to create your own interpretation of it in order to connect with it more. The identity of a work of art cannot be stripped away. The artist cannot be stripped away. Not when they're so personal and expressive. My passion in talking about this film speaks for itself in my eyes to show why I think this is the best film of the year. In a just world, the entire cast and crew would have every award in the books by the end of the year, but I know that is doubtful. Please, for the love of God though, just give this soundtrack an award. Please, man. Please. I Saw the TV Glow is an essential and immediately impactful film that I believe everyone should try to experience even if you do not entirely relate to the themes of the film, as I still believe it can open your eyes to something you didn't once see before. The film showcases the importance of art, as so many people have discovered a truth that they didn't once know before seeing it. And that's why I find it to be such a massive footnote in our ongoing decade. Watch I Saw the TV Glow if you haven't, and watch Jane Schoenbrun's other works and future works to support one of our most valuable voices in modern cinema. Because seriously, there is going to be a lot more films like this to come. And I am very, very excited for that. Thank you all for sticking by in this video if you have. If you did and you did enjoy it, as always, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I haven't been as active lately with uploads, but I plan on making more videos soon now that my college workload has somewhat decreased and I have more videos written out that I can record soon, so yeah, that's all I have talked about for you today. Again, leave a like and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.